What's up guys? Today we're going to be setting up the Aimtrak Light Guns. This might be a little bit of a long video. I don't want to waste any time, so let's get right into it. Alright, the first thing you want to do is do Control-Shift-Escape on the keyboard. You want to select Hyperspin, do End Task. Now you're going to have a black background. I already have my desktop here, but you're going to do New Task, and if it doesn't say Explorer in here, type it in, then hit OK, and you're going to get the desktop the same as I have here. Alright, so next up, you want to go ahead and plug in your first gun to the computer as well as the sensor bar to the top or the bottom of the monitor. Now, one thing I recommend is that you label your guns. So as you can see here, I have this one labeled to number 1 and this one labeled to number 2. So actually what you want to do is go ahead and plug in the second gun or whatever gun you want to be gun number 2. Go ahead and plug that into the PC first without plugging in number 1. Once that gun is plugged in, you want to go ahead and do the ultimart Aimtrak utility, which is a shortcut is here on the desktop. So go ahead and double click on the ultimart Aimtrak utility, and that's going to bring up this utility. And you should have a green bar like this on the right side that's letting you know that the computer can see the gun and it's detecting the gun is connected. Okay, so then you're going to go ahead and match the settings to what I have here. Yours are not going to be the same, it's going to be something different. So go ahead and make the first one mouse left and then mouse right on the right, GP button 3, GP button 3, GP button 1, GP button 1 again. And then you want to go ahead and do the check marks like I have here, like this, and then go ahead and do apply changes. Okay, that's the first step. The next step, now remember you only have one gun and the one that you designated to be gun number 2. That's the only thing that should be plugged into the computer right now. So next you want to go to change device ID, and here you're going to set ID to 2. So this second button here, click that and then click OK. Now give it a few seconds and the program is actually going to freeze, and that's totally fine. Just let it do its thing. Alright, so if you see that it's been a few seconds and you see here it says no device, that's totally fine. And see the program froze? It says not responding up here. You want to go ahead and close the program. If this comes up, you know when you hit the X up here, if this comes up, hit close program and go ahead and open it again. So now you can see that device 1 is no longer detected, and that's fine. You want to go to the drop down here, hit select device number 2, and you can see that that is set to firmware 9.15 and it's green, which lets you know that the software can see your gun. Okay, so now that that's done, you can go ahead and close this out and plug in the first gun. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then you want to go ahead and open up the software again. Okay, so now you can see that device number 1 is being recognized because we didn't touch this one. They come standard as device number 1, so that's good. And if you go to device number 2, that's also there, which is good. So let's go back to device number 1 because this is the first time we plug that one in. So you don't have to do change ID on that one, but you do have to configure this section here the same as number 2, as gun number 2. So same exact settings, make sure that's mouse left and that's right, then GP button 3, GP button 3, GP button 1, GP button 1, and then have these two boxes here checked off. Then go ahead and do apply changes and you should be good to go. If you want to double check, just close the software, open it again, and your device number 1 should look like this. And if you go down to device number 2, it should also look like this. So make sure all those settings are correct before you go any further, okay? So now that that's done, we're going to go and make ahead and make sure that the devices are being recognized in the sensor view check. So I have device number 1, which should be the gun labeled number 1. So if you wave it around, you should see a red dot in the black box, which I can see there. So that's good. And you can see the mouse moving because these are really like, you can think of them as a mouse. They control your mouse. If you look at the mouse on the computer, you can see it moving. So that's controlling the mouse, that's good. And speaking of the mouse, if you're trying to configure these guns and you're trying to use the actual computer mouse and you're moving it around and you can't move it around, or you see that your mouse that your pointer is all over the place, that's because these guns are interfering with the mouse. So you want to go ahead and point them away from the screen to the point where they don't move the mouse anymore. Sometimes they're reflective of objects, so just move them around till they don't have any conflict with your real mouse. Okay, that's actually something that's very important, because you know, this could happen where you're trying to move the mouse and it's not moving and you're like, what's going on? And that's going to be it. So keep that in the back of your head. Now, device number 1 is good to go. It's all configured. We did the sensor check and it's all good. Now let's do device number 2. Let's go to sensor view check, and you're going to pick up the one labeled number 2, pointed at the screen. And as you can see, I can see the dot moving. However, the mouse is not moving, and that's not good because it's supposed to move. So if that happens, go ahead and unplug the gun from the computer, plug it back in, and close the program and open it again. Or you can even try it without opening the program, because the gun should work already in Windows. It has nothing to do with that program. So you can see it's still not working, and gun number 1 is working. So let's go ahead and unplug it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try a different USB port. So I'm going to move it over to a different USB port, and I'm going to try it again. And there you go, now it's working. So when I pick up gun number 2, it's controlling my pointer on the desktop, and when I pick up number 1, it's also controlling the pointer on the desktop. Now I'm going to go ahead and there you go. I'm just testing out that it's working, because it's a little bit glitchy right now, but that's probably because I have to calibrate it. So that's the next thing we have to do actually. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the Ultimart Aimtrak utility, and I'm going to go to gun number 2 and just make sure that it's still being recognized in the sensor view, which it is. And now I'm going to try to see if I can calibrate it. So you can calibrate it by clicking this button right here, or that's the reason we checked off these little marks here. You're telling it that the right red button, so you have the left red button right here and the right one. If you hold the right one for about 3 seconds or so, it's going to enable the calibration. So you don't even have to be in this utility. You could be anywhere and hold that button now. So let me see if I can get that to work. Okay, and it's actually not working. So something is wrong with this one here, right? So let's see what we can figure out. Let's go to calibrate on here. Is not working either. As you can see, the program is kind of freezing, which means there's a little bit of a conflict somewhere. Okay, so we're going to close that. Gun number 1 is fine. Gun number 2 is still glitchy. I'm not really seeing it controlling the mouse. So let's try to see if we can figure out why that's happening. I'm going to unplug it again, and I'm going to plug it into a different USB port. Okay, and now you can see that it's back, and now it's definitely working right, because I can control the mouse perfectly without any problems. And when I press the trigger, it's acting as left mouse click. All right, so now we're good. As you can see, this is pretty much, can be very tricky. This is why I do not sell these myself. And aside from this video, I mean, if you're having some issues, I'll try to help you out. But the point of this video is to really get you to be able to set these guns up by yourself, because they can be tricky. All right, so I didn't want to edit this and cut out all this troubleshooting, because I wanted you to experience exactly what it's like setting these up. And as you just saw, it's just a matter of playing with it a little bit, unplugging them, plugging them back in until you get them working. Now, don't unplug them and plug them back in prior to this last step that we just did. Follow along with the video, and then when you get to this point you have the same issues as I'm having now, that's all you got to do. Just unplug it from one USB, plug it to the next, see if that works. If it doesn't, plug it again, plug it to a different USB port, or back to that same one that you unplugged it from, and you should be good to go after you do that like 1, 2, 3 times. All right, so right now gun number 1 I can point it at the screen and it's moving the mouse perfectly fine. Gun number 2, I can point it at the screen and it's also moving the mouse around perfectly fine. Now, we're up to the step where you want to calibrate. Now I should be able to calibrate by holding this left or right button here for like 3 seconds. So I'm going to hold that button down. And you're going to see that the pointer goes over to the left, top left of the screen and remains there flashing. That means it's waiting for you to point the gun at that position and pull the trigger. All right, so here's a tip for this one. You do not want to calibrate the gun from the point at which you're not going to be shooting. So, or a better way to say that is, you should point the gun at the screen the same way in which you're going to be shooting. So if you're going to hold it out in front of you, you want to calibrate like this. If you're going to shoot from your hip, you want to calibrate like this. If you calibrate from your hip and then you lift it up and start shooting like that, it's not going to be as accurate. Same thing with distance. You want to be at the exact distance, or more or less, that you're going to be playing from. So don't calibrate at 10 feet and then start playing at 5 feet, right? So another thing, don't be this close to the screen. I'm only this close for this tutorial. You want to be, I would say, at least 5 feet back. So you're better to get a more accurate calibration, and your playing experience is going to be a lot better that way. So with that said, I'm just going to, for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm just going to hold it around here and I'm going to point at the screen and shoot to the top left. And there you see that it took, because now I moved to the top right. So now I'm going to aim at the top right and I'm going to go ahead and press the trigger. And now I moved to the bottom center of the screen. Now that one could be a little bit tricky sometimes, so if you shoot and it doesn't take, just keep trying. Now I'm going to try it, and it actually took, so I'm good. And if I move my gun around, I can see that it's pretty accurate. It's moving to where I move my gun. All right, so that gun is calibrated. I'm going to put that aside and try to point it away from the screen, and I'm going to do the same thing with the second gun. So I'm going to hold that right button down until the pointer moves to the top left of the screen. And then once it's up there, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to point it at it, squeeze the trigger. And as you can see, it didn't take on that one, so I'm going to try it again. It still didn't take. Try it again. It's not taking, so you just keep trying. Maybe move it around a little bit. Again, I'm very close to the screen, so that's definitely affecting the performance right now, but there you go, it took. So now I'm going to do it on the top right, and it took, and I'm going to do it to the bottom. That one didn't take, didn't take. And each time I was adjusting my gun slightly. If it didn't take, I was kind of like adjusting it a little bit, until it took. All right, so now both guns are calibrated, but I can see that this one is not acting as smooth as the other one. It's pretty erratic. Now, let me move this one out of the way, because it could be affecting the performance of this one, like I said before. And it's still doing the same thing. So I'm going to try to calibrate it one more time until I get it a little bit better than this. So I'm going to hold the button down again. And I'm trying to move myself a little bit further back. So there you go. Try it again. Didn't take. Didn't take. And I adjust my position. And it took that time. It took that one. And it took the bottom one. So now I can see that it's a lot smoother and I can control the gun perfectly. All right, so again, try it a few times if that kind of thing happens to you. All right, so now both guns are calibrated. And when I say calibrated, I mean like an initial calibration. And this should be pretty much fine for the most part. But calibration is something that you might have to do often. So if, a week from now, or tomorrow, 2 days from now, you start to play again and it's not acting as accurate as it was before, do the calibration, because you're probably not, and you change your position slightly. So we've assigned gun 1 and 2. We've assigned all the correct inputs in the Aimtrak utility, and we've calibrated both guns. So now the guns are ready to go. Now what we have to do is we have to go into MAME and do some work there. So we're going to go ahead and open up this on the bottom on the taskbar, the yellow folder next to the start. We're going to click on that, and we're going to go over here on the left to emulators, and we're going to go down to MAME gun games. Don't do regular MAME or any of the other ones. Make sure it's MAME gun games. Open that up, And once that is open, you want to go ahead and go to the CFG folder. Okay, open that up and then go down to default right here and right click default and do properties and then uncheck read only. Now I keep that as read only so that it doesn't get overwritten, and I'm not going to go into why, but just know that you have to make it, you have to uncheck read only to configure it, and then we're going to make it read only again. Okay, so you want to uncheck that. Now on a side note, if you bought this computer, if you bought a system from me within the last few weeks from when this video is published, you're probably not going to have to do this. But so at this point you could go ahead and try your guns in the game, which we're going to do next, so wait for that. But you can sort of skip this part and just go straight to the next part, which is we're going to test it, because you shouldn't have to do this, okay? But in case it doesn't work, then come and do this part, but you shouldn't have to do this. This is more for anyone that bought my system prior to a few weeks ago, all right? So one good way to know if you have the update or not is to go back to the main MAME folder, and in here go to the CTRLR folder. If in here you see a file named gunconfig.cfg, you have the newer version that I'm talking about, in which case you shouldn't have to do this next step. If you don't have gunconfig.cfg, then you will definitely have to do this next step. So let's go back to emulators folder, MAME gun games, CFG folder. Now we right clicked on the default properties, we unchecked read only, okay? Now we're gonna open up that file. I'm sorry, we're not gonna open up that file. You just wanna make sure it's not read only, okay? Once you do that, you go back to the MAME folder and you go down to the MAME shortcut. Now don't click MAME.exe, 64.exe. See here it says use to configure guns. You wanna click on that one, MAME64 use to configure guns. So double click that, and that's going to open up MAME, and it's also going to already open up Area 51, the game, for you, because we're going to use this game to configure the guns. Okay, so you want to go ahead and press tab on the keyboard, press tab again if that happens, until you get this menu here. Okay, now once you get this menu, you want to go down to actually, you can stay on input general and go ahead and press enter with that highlighted, and go down to player 1 controls and press enter again. There's only a few things we're configuring in here, okay? So let's do gun 1 first. So get gun 1, make sure gun 2 is out of the way and it's not pointing at the screen, and go ahead and go down to player 1 button 1. Okay, now when you do this, you want to keep the gun very, very steady, because any movement is going to register when you're trying to configure these inputs. So what I like to do for this first one is I lay the gun flat, very still, and then I go and highlight P1 button 1, hit enter, and squeeze the trigger very slowly so that it only registers that. Now see there that gun 1 button 0 and gun 1 Y plus. That's no good. That it registered the axis. So what you can do is hit enter, escape to clear it out, make it none, and then go ahead and hit enter again. Try to squeeze the trigger one more time. There you go, that took perfectly. Gun 1 B0, that's what you want to see. All right, and it doesn't have to be gun 1, it doesn't have to be B0, but you want it to say gun 1, gun 2, gun 3, whatever it is, you want it to say gun a number and then button 0. It's probably going to be button 0, but the gun number could change. Okay, now those of you with the newer update should see just gun 1. Anybody with the older version, the gun number could change. Okay, so now we program player 1 button 1. Now we're going to go to player 1 button 2. Now button 2 is the left red button right here on the gun. All right, so again, keep it very steady. Hit enter on that input and press that button. Now again, that didn't register properly because it's saying a bunch of stuff there, so we're gonna hit enter, escape to clear it out, hit enter again, and try that again. Okay, that's perfect. Joy 1 button 1. It only registered one input, which is what you want. Now go to player 1 button 3. Now we're gonna do the right side red button. So lay it flat again, hit enter on that, press that button, And there you go, it took that time perfectly. So we're good there. All right, now I'm gonna scroll all the way up so it takes us all the way to the bottom. Okay, now we're here. So we're gonna go up to add stick X analog. Okay, so that is going to be your X axis, and then we're going to do the Y axis after that. Okay, so I'm gonna press enter on that, and I'm gonna move the gun. Whoops, see it didn't take properly, so again, clear it out. This one you want to be very steady, so go ahead and move your gun. It still didn't take. Okay, so now it took the gun 1Y, which we don't want. So we're gonna press enter again. Okay, it still didn't take. Again, you have to try this a few times until you get it right. So I'm just gonna keep trying it. Okay, there you go. So gun 1X, that's what you want. All right, now I'm gonna go to gun Y analog, and I'm gonna press enter again. And this time we're moving it up and down. Okay, so it took gun Y. Up and down is a lot easier than side to side, so it took that one right away. All right, so obviously the X analog is gonna be left to right, Y is gonna be up and down. Now you wanna do the exact same thing for light gun X analog and light gun Y analogs. So we did, before we did add stick, now we're gonna do light gun X analog. So I'm gonna press enter, move it side to side, and it took that time right away. And you get better with practice once you do this a few times. So we're gonna go down to light gun Y analog. I'm gonna move it up and down, and there you go. Now remember that the gun number could be different for you. That depends on how Windows assigns the USB IDs to your gun anyway. That's not important. What's important is that the gun number could be different. As long as you have gun and some sort of number, and X and Y is what you care about, okay? So once you do this, you're good to go. We programmed the trigger, both of the red buttons, and we programmed the X and Y axes for both add stick and light gun. All right, so you're done there. You can go to previous menu, return to previous menu, hit enter, and now you can move on to player 2. Put this gun away, point it away from the screen, go to player 2 and do the exact same thing with the other gun. So we're gonna do the trigger first. See, that didn't take properly, so clear it out. Do it again. There it is. Now the left button took fine, and the right button, flip it around. Didn't take, so clear it out. There you go, that took perfectly, so I'm gonna go all the way up so it takes us to the bottom. Let's do the add stick X. There, it took perfectly. Let's do the Y. Let's do the X again, side to side. There you go. Let's do up and down. And that's it. So once you do that, both guns are completely configured. Now let's go ahead and do return to previous menu. Return to previous menu again. Let's do return to machine. Return to machine. Hit escape on the keyboard. It's gonna kick you out of MAME. And now you want to go ahead and go back to that CFG folder, and you want to go to default.cfg, right click, properties, and make that read only. Hit apply. Okay, so at this point you should pretty much be ready to go. The guns were configured in the Aimtrak utility, and you just configured the inputs in MAME. So at this point you can go ahead and test the guns. So go ahead and open up Rocket Launcher UI, which is the fourth icon on the taskbar here from the left. Mine is already open to save time. So up here, just type in gun and select gun games. Now you want to test it from here. So same thing, do the little white icon over here to list all the games, and just type in area 51, and then select area 51 and do the rocket icon over here. Now it should work fine. Okay, so you want to go ahead and do S to insert credit, and R to start the game. As you can see, I can move my crosshairs around perfectly now. All right, so as you can see, I'm playing and everything's working fine. And then if you to reload, you reload off the screen and it's fine. Quick tip there, I usually find that it works better when you point to the bottom of the screen to reload. So like point it down and shoot and press the trigger like this. But it works fine to the side as well. But sometimes I find that if you do it down, it works a little bit better. So as you can see, it's working fine. So I'm gonna test player 2. So I'm gonna do the letter U to insert credit and the letter T to hit start. So as you can see, number 2 is also working perfectly. I can reload, I can shoot. All right, so that's Area 51 working. Now I like to test Alien as well because on that one you get to use the red button. So I'm gonna type in Alien and you wanna select Alien 3, the first one here, Alien 3, the gun. All right, so again, hit the rocket icon right here, let it start, and then hit the letter S to insert credit. And on this one, it tells you to pull the trigger to start. So you do that. Okay, so you can see that it's working perfectly. And then if you press the left red button, in this game, it shoots these grenades. All right, if you try player 2, hit the letter U to insert credit and pull the trigger. You can see that the second player works perfectly too. If you press the red button on the left, it does it shoots the grenades. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit escape to exit. And that's it, guys. You have completed the setup of the light guns. And from this point on, the advice that I can give you is that if at any point your guns stop working, all you have to do is go back to MAME. So, exit hyperspin with Control Shift Escape, just like at the beginning. Come over to the computer, open the yellow folder here, go over to emulators, and go over to the MAME gun games folder. Okay, first thing you do is you go to CFG, right click the default file, go to properties, uncheck read only so that you can actually write to it. All right, go back to MAME 64 used to configure guns and just go ahead and do your trigger, your left and right button, and your X and Y axes for add stick and gun, so that you can get all those inputs configured again, and then you'll be ready to go. So with those of you who purchased the machine from me within the past few weeks, again, those of you that have the gun config file over here in the CTRLR folder, you probably won't have to do that too much, if at all. Once you get it configured the first time, if you have to configure, remember, first try the game before you try to configure the inputs, because yours should work right off the bat. But if not, do the configuration. But with you guys, you probably won't have to do it at all. Once you just do the initial configuration in the Aimtrak utility, you should be able to go straight in and start playing. But if it ever stops working, definitely check the configuration here in MAME first, okay? For those of you who have the older version of the system, it's very inconsistent as far as like the guns staying configured. So the best advice I could give you is always leave them plugged in. Leave them plugged into the same USB ports, or go ahead and label the guns like you were supposed to do anyway, but also label your USB ports and where you have each gun connected. And then when you're going to use the gun, always plug them into the exact same ports that you configured them on. It's going to give you the best results and keep them configured the longest. Also, if you plug any USB devices like thumb drives or anything into the PC, it could change those USB IDs. So you want to go ahead and run this configuration again if your guns stop working when you go to use them. So again, those of you with the newer machine should not have this problem, but if you do, this is all you have to do every time. And once you do this once or twice, it's going to be a matter of like a minute or two to get this working correctly again. You quit out of Hyperspin, you come to the MAME gun games folder, you open up the CFG folder, you right click default and uncheck read only like that. You go back in to the previous folder, you run MAME64 used to configure guns, do your trigger, 2 buttons, X and Y, exit out, come back here, CFG default, and make that one read only again, hit apply, okay, and you're good to go. All right, guys, so that should pretty much be it. I don't think I'm forgetting anything, but if I am, I'll either make notes down in the description, or if it's substantial enough, I'll release another video covering whatever I forgot. But I think I pretty much covered everything. If you follow along with this video, it's really not that complicated. This is just a long video because I wanted to go over every little thing, and as you can see, I did not edit this. This is all one shot so that you can see exactly the issues that I had doing this, and so that you know what to do when and if you have the same issues. All right, so if you have any questions, let me know. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.